There we go. Here we go.
All right.
We'll let you start with the questions, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. You and I talked about one we saw in council a little earlier today. Someone from the audience was asking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that this is a great community of folks who often are very curious about how to evaluate different projects and what are sort of the different trade-offs that projects are making. And so that was one thing that I wanted to kick it off with. There's been a lot of developments in the Bitcoin space as a whole, projects like BitVM and Taro Assets, et cetera. And so could you speak quickly on in terms of where your project stands, maybe what you're optimizing for from a security perspective, and if you wanted to comment on any of the other projects and developments as well. Manip, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. I think that's a very interesting question. It's almost like I think I need an in-depth blog post to try and classify this. So let me give a TLDR version of what that blog post might actually look like. So I think I'm calling this maybe like a Bitcoin L2 trilemma. So on one axis, you basically have the option of building an open network or a federation, right? On the other axis, you have, hey, should you have a token or not have a token, right? And on the last axis, it's basically full VM. Like, do you want to have like full smart contracts, or do you want to have some limited version of it? And let's say you can only pick two, right? So if you look at Liquid, Liquid is saying, okay, we will have a federation, we will not have a token, and we can do more fancy contracts over there. Lightning is saying we won't have a token, but like they want to be open. Lightning is actually not a federation. Right? So what they're giving up on is like there's a bunch of things that are not on a chain, not on a full VM. So it's offline data, offline computation. So I think Taproot Assets basically qualifies there, right? It's more peer-to-peer. It has some information on the L1, and I think the choice that sort of like the Stacks project made was, hey, we're going to be open, right? It's not a federation. Anyone can become a miner, and we're going to have full VM. But that also means that we need incentives, and that's why there's a token. And sometimes in the Bitcoin community, that's not the thing that people want to see, right? Rootstock is actually very interesting. Like they try to almost like square the triangle by trying to reuse existing Bitcoin miners. That instead of incentivizing separate miners by their own token, they're saying we'll try to sort of like reuse existing Bitcoin miners for their own infrastructure. And I think maybe that's a great segue to pass it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're focused on at the moment is. Am I coming through? Doesn't sound like it.
Sorry?
Can you guys hear Daniel?
You guys hear? No.
No, it's good.
That was going crazy. Okay, I can shout. How's that? Is that better? There we go. All right, marvelous. Yeah, I mean, look, focus for us at the moment is very vanilla. We want to make Rootstock a lot easier for developers to build on. So that means that the outcome is we're spending a lot of time keeping Rootstock EVM compatible so that Solidity smart contracts and ERC tokens can run on the network. At a sort of deeper level, the progress that we need to make to continue to expand the merge mining, the use of merge mining by Bitcoin miners continues. We've also got some really interesting stuff coming up with the two-way peg, where this is the mechanism we use to bring Bitcoin into Rootstock. So we moved away from a purely federated model about 18 months ago, and we now have a security in-depth model using the proof-of-work hardware security modules, full attestation, and we're going to be expanding that to 66 fully attested, what we call pegnatories, in the near future. So that's kind of how we've kind of placed our technological bets, and we're just continuing to work on them. So expanding the number of merge miners, making the peg even more robust, and making it easier for developers to build on the network. Relatively straightforward stuff. And of course, from a user perspective and an adoption perspective, making it easy to access RBTC in a trustless and permissionless way. And there's a lot more work we need to do on that as well.
Chante and Yago, I'm not sure.
I have something short to add to this. I think what you guys are saying has been the reality of building on Bitcoin now for a long time. The reason, and I spoke here a moment ago, and I seemed excited. The reason I seemed excited is because I think the compromises that we've had to make to build on Bitcoin are diminishing rapidly and are about to disappear. I think we're entering a phase where there are no compromises, where we will have the full security of Bitcoin available with the full expressivity of a Turing-complete system, with the full scalability of infinite, and we will have trustless Bitcoin moving from main chain through these different layers. And I don't think that's far away. Now, you can be working on part of that platform and part of that stack, which is what we're doing here, and you can be working on applications that will be part of that stack, and you can be doing that today within the constraints of today's current compromises. And you should be. And I think that would be my message, right? The compromises that exist right now are temporary, and they have constrained us. They've suffocated our growth in comparison to other ecosystems. But they're about to be lifted, and the best thing that we can be doing now, and I think what all of the projects on the stage have been doing, and as a result are going to prove very valuable, is they've built out an initial ecosystem, initial audience. They've proven product market fit in the constrained world, and those constraints are about to be released. We're releasing the Kraken.
I came from TradFi, okay? And we started raising money for Alex's project when Bitcoin was 67,000. And here we are 2 years later. What I want to say is that for the builders here, instead of all these technical difficulties, because we are all, racing towards this. And that's why I think Rachel and I decided to do this, is that, again, we chose a road that really only few people travel, but it also means opportunity. Feel your technical challenges, feel your financial challenges. That's why Rachel and I put all what we have in this Bitcoin lab. It's not to compete with other accelerators out there. The purpose is really, we know what you have gone through. You need technical advice, for example, on stacks, clarity, on Bitcoin L1, the script. You need SDK, you need API, you need to repo our GitHub really fast, not to reinvent the wheel. So that's on the technical side. That will give you advice. On the financial side, we help you to bootstrap your liquidity. We give you some funding. We don't have huge checks, but we help you so you can get by at this current macro environment. And you have a very vibrant community that right away will accept you. And I think, again, sometimes we stay in the room, again, we become very religious and philosophical. Ultimately, why we are building here on Bitcoin is because we want to have a viable competitor to the fiat system. And let's not forget that. But how do you build a competitive monetary and financial engines, a time machine that you can preserve your current saving for the next generation, you can lend, that you can consume right now and pay later, you can borrow. These are not easy. These are really the backbone of our human civilization, what we are doing right now. So what I want to say is that a lot of people say Bitcoin doesn't need DeFi. Well, if you just do send and receive, that's not finance, right? That doesn't create civilization. What creates civilization is finance, is that time machine that can transfer value through the generation and through the geography. That's what, people call it DeFi, but that's what finance is for, and we are just building on Bitcoin. and we feel your pain. So that's how we decided to contribute. Is that we get you funding, we help you on tech. We want to create, just like Jaco and I, we keep on yapping to each other. We want to create a very, very viable ecosystem. Otherwise, there's no point for people to come to us, to come to Bitcoin. And I think that's what excites me most, is that you have a vision, you have those volatility, whip you around. I was just looking yesterday, 10-year US Treasury yield volatility is about 7% annualized. S&P is about 15%. Bitcoin is about 28 to 32%. Stack is double that. Alex is 2.5 times double that of the volatility. That's where we are living. But if you have a vision, you believe that we can build the on-chain Goldman Sachs that is decentralized, right? You just go through that, and then we try to really, lift each other up. And so please come to talk to me if you are interested in this very unique opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how many of the people in the room here are looking to build or already building in the Bitcoin ecosystem, looking to raise money, already raised money, or how many are just sort of speculators or investors or hodlers. But what you were saying, is one of the things that makes building in Bitcoin and building in crypto a really unique and difficult industry to work in. Now, there are lots of unique and difficult things. There are the technical constraints, there are the regulatory constraints, there's the UI constraints, there's the privacy constraints and not tracking your users. There's a whole bunch of things that make it much more difficult than Web 2.0. But one of the really difficult things is that in most industries, you expect that you start out here and then you kind of go like this. But anyone who's held Bitcoin, and certainly anyone who's built in the space, knows that it looks nothing like that. You go like this. And you're just like on this incredibly... Now, being a founder or building something is a roller coaster experience, but when you hypercharge that with this 2.5, 10 times vol, right, it's crazy. So, if you're an investor, if you're a developer, if you are a VC in the space, you have to realize that you are not investing in technology, you're investing in farming, right? There's seasons. And you have to know which season you're in, because if you try to plant your crops in winter, they're all going to die. And if you don't water in the summer, they're all going to die. And if you don't harvest during harvest season, you're going to lose the crop. Now, we've had, for whatever reason, probably the Bitcoin halving, a 4-year process. We're right now towards the end of winter. Winter is for repairing, for building your greenhouse, for getting your tools in order. We've all been getting our tools in order. We've been building infrastructure. We've been making improvements. We've been quiet. We're now going to be moving into spring. And spring's when we're going to be planting. It's going to be where new projects can get started. It's going to be where raising money is going to start getting easier again. It's where, if you've invested in a token, the price is going to start going up again. This is the best time. This, right now, the moment before spring, that's the moment to start paying attention. This is the best time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we are in a group of folks who are building through this time. So yeah, would love to take some questions from the audience if you'll have any.
You got a question?
Thank you. Yeah, love the enthusiasm. So as you're saying, we're removing those technical blockers at the moment, coming into spring, but the next battle, I don't think will be technological, it'll probably be regulatory. So just in my opinion, so what is your strategy coming forward? Obviously, we've got the UK changing backwards and forwards, Saudi and Dubai looking very open, Hong Kong, etc. And where do you see your strategy going forward in that?
Ignore them.
I can give a very, very quick answer to that. I think one of the benefits of building on Bitcoin is that Bitcoin has the most regularity clarity out of any asset. So on a relative basis, it's like, okay, maybe the industry as a whole has less clarity, But if you're building on Bitcoin, you're better off than doing anything else. Right? So BTC, the asset, has, like even in the US, the SEC is like cracking down on everything. But even this extremely unfriendly regulator is sort of saying like, hey, Bitcoin is fine. Bitcoin, there are sort of like no issues there. So I think that's one takeaway or a big benefit of building on Bitcoin.
One thing I'd just add to that is there's a reason why I think regulators are concerned. I mean, there is a lot of bad actors and a lot of scams in the space, and frankly, that is a barrier for those building credible projects. They're polluting the positive narrative and the people building out real use cases by flooding the zone with shit, right? And I think that's a big issue. So regulators can be part of the solution in helping crypto grow, but obviously it's much more complicated than that slightly more positive message.
Regulation is a problem for centralized projects. If you're building a centralized crypto project, you've made a fundamental mistake. Right? What we need to be doing with technology which is designed to be P2P and decentralized is building P2P decentralized technology. Sovereign has no corporation. Sovereign, I don't know who the people I work with are. I don't know where they are. I don't know what their real names are. They're pseudonymous. And they contribute because everything's open source. This is the way that we should be building now. You might want to enter the space. You might want to enter the space and say, well, how do I do it without setting up a company or starting out centralized or potentially getting arrested by the police in Amsterdam? Sovereign Community has tried to help people with this kind of problem before. Developers will come with an idea, and the Sovereign Community will launch it. And because we're a financial system, we will divert to a pseudonymous account funds on the basis of whatever that system is generating, or tokens, or whatever it happens to be. We should be building decentralized launchpads which go more than just being decentralized themselves, but which also allow people to launch decentralized projects. That's one of the things that Sovereign is doing. And we need to have decentralized ways of regulating ourselves, because there is a lot of scams and shit out there. And as the barrier to entry to building on Bitcoin gets lower, the quality is going to get lower as well. And so we need to have decentralized systems for guarding ourselves and regulating ourselves so that Bitcoin remains the safe haven, not just for money, but also for finance. And the way that we do that is by building DAOs and systems for collaboration. So if we take cypherpunk seriously, if we take decentralization and we take Bitcoin ethos seriously, we can build alternatives and solutions to all of these things. We need to, because the regulation out there is a hindrance, not a help. It doesn't save people. It doesn't stop FTX. It doesn't stop Celsius. Ultimately, the only people who are going to do that is us.
Thank you.
All right, we got one right here.
Question?
Hi, what a fantastic first day. Just want to say congratulations to everybody. Okay, so storytelling is what moves us as people, as humans, through the course of time. What I'm interested in knowing is, what's your narrative? What's the narrative you want to share? And how do you want to inspire others to join?
My story is very simple. I am an Asian woman. My mother came from China. My mother-in-law is in Senegal. I want financial inclusion. I think women and also emerging markets, the reason why we don't have that kind of economic power is because we were not financially included. Simple as that. My mother-in-law in Senegal, she cannot have dollar account. We are very spoiled here in UK and US. We take a lot of things as granted, but if you move away a little bit to, to Nigeria, to Indonesia, you will see why crypto, and particularly Bitcoin, has such a, attraction to the people there, because you have a really first time in our generation, and the previous generation, you have some technology there, you can compete with fiat. So I think that's our storytelling, but also as a builder, that's your vision. Again, you get whipped around by the volatility, but once you have that vision very, very clear, that's where you're going, then you have a playbook, but have an adaptable playbook, right? For example, ordinals, like Yago said, BRC20 now comes Room. And what Muni were talking about, there are more taproot assets coming. Have a very adaptable playbook, right? You want to adapt the market because this industry is very, very vibrant, noisy, exciting, and you, as a builder, you can get tired of it. So try to have your vision, have your adaptable playbook, and just go there. And that's our storytelling, is that we are really building for the financial inclusion.
I think just to build off that, I kind of reversed into payments and Bitcoin by accident by building a power and internet company. You talk about trilemmas. I came across my own trilemma about 8 years ago, which is that if you want to provide renewable energy in a rural village, you need to also provide connectivity and a mechanism for payment. If you want to provide the means for peer-to-peer transfer in a rural community, well, there needs to be a way to charge the phone to do so and an internet connection to send the payment. If you want to access internet in a rural community and get on the network, well, you've got to power the router and there needs to be a way to pay for it. So by trying to solve the issue of power and energy off-grid, we ended up having to spend most of our time addressing the issue of how you do mobile payments in off-grid and environments. And for me, it was a window into a lot of what you were talking about there, which is that I think that we take for granted how debilitating it can be to be underbanked. Not just unbanked, but underbanked. To have access to a financial system, but it not be the whole thing, to simplify. And I think that we are entering a period of intensifying global instability where these various different economic crises which are combining to make this polycrisis is making our future a little more uncertain. And I think within this, we're already seeing that there has to be some form of decentralized financial system that emerges to ensure that, frankly, normal everyday people are not getting caught out while these macroeconomic trends smash them. And I think that if you reverse back from that and you start to think about the technology choices you would need to build a decentralized economy, you have to start with Bitcoin. And so, one of the pleasures of the work I do in working with so many people in the Rootstock ecosystem, working with EDAN, but also many of the users that use EDAN's products and the products in Rootstock, is that a large majority of them are based in emerging markets, trying to get access to US dollars in the face of currency devaluation, trying to send remittance payments. And frankly, that's what motivates me. It's what motivates a lot of the people at IOV Labs and a lot of the builders that come to Rootstock. They make a similar calculation. If you want to build an entirely new banking system, you need to start with the vault, and Bitcoin is that vault.
All right, I think we got time for one more question right here in the center.
Great, thank you. Great conference, excellent. Well done, everybody. What I just wanted to ask is really about how can we get, or maybe you may be able to suggest already, to get the on and off ramp in Bitcoin and crypto to be much more frictionless? Or is there ways already, or ways that are coming, but so it can increase the mass adoption?
I feel like you guys are closer to the on-ramps and off-ramps.
I think this is a challenge.
I'll make one very brief point, which is that it's actually questions like that really matter, because a lot of building this future financial system, it's about the nuts and bolts of getting better ramps, getting developers educated, making sure the wallets have got the protocols integrated, making sure all the tokens are available. Ramps are where it all starts. You can't go from fiat to crypto without a really good, really simple ramp. So I don't necessarily have an answer to the question. It's what our team and a lot of the people in our ecosystem spend most of their time doing. Yeah. Do you want to maybe add something?
I can comment a little bit about the UX, but also I love the previous question because it gets to the why. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? What sort of personally motivates you? And that made me think. I think it had to do with how I grew up. I grew up in Pakistan, and I think we as humans, we have a desire to sort of work with other people and improve the human condition. And what happens in a lot of countries, especially in Pakistan, is that if the systems around you, let's say the government or anything else, is not working for you, it's a very frustrating place to be in, because you want to do the right thing, you want to contribute towards like improving the human condition for yourself, your family, your friends, but something is in the way. You feel helpless, you feel powerless, right? So this idea of like giving the power to the people so that they can fix their own problems themselves without asking for permission is a very, very powerful idea. And I think that's what excites me towards Bitcoin. Like the same thing, like if you feel like, hey, something's broken, it might be inflation, it might be something else, it might be you're scared of the debt crisis, like you can self-educate. There's a community of people, of diehard believers you could join, but this technology is sort of beautiful, like because you don't have to ask for permission. Everything's open source. You can contribute to GitHub. You can start building something. You can do these transactions, and no one on the planet can actually stop those transactions. So I think this concept of like giving the power to the people is very liberating, because now you can no longer blame other people for your problems. You're like, hey, I have my destiny in my own hands, and I'm going to do something about it. So I think that's the why that really, really drives me, because I do think Bitcoin is a force for good for the planet. But then you can play a role. Like everyone in this room right now, we are still very, very early. Like we are in very early stages of Bitcoin. And imagine like playing some small role in a technology that ended up changing the lives of billions of people. Like I think it's an amazing mission to be on. And now coming to the UX side, I think my theory has so far been that this industry has spent way too much time in the infrastructure phase. And sadly, I think in many ways we are still in the infrastructure phase. What Yago was talking about, that soon I think those barriers might be lifted and maybe the infrastructure is not going to be in the way anymore. I do think a lot of the UX challenges are coming from the infrastructure. It doesn't mean that people don't need to innovate on the UX side and make things simpler. I think they can, but right now when they try to do it, the infrastructure gets in their way. And I do think the infrastructure needs to mature a little bit more. That's why in the Stacks project, a ton of focus is on the Nakamoto release that actually has great UX features, like block times go down to seconds instead of waiting for, so like Bitcoin blocks over 10, 30 minutes and so on. But I think it might not be clear to everybody, but this industry, the infrastructure is still not mature enough, and a lot of problems are actually coming from there.
I'll just say, with regards to the question around fiat and on-ramps, off-ramps, it is a major challenge. It is an idiosyncratic challenge with every single jurisdiction, and every single interface has different solutions. However, this is something we've been struggling with for years now. Before working on Sovereign, I was working on a remittance company using Bitcoin. And there's a lot of opportunity, and there actually are more near universal solutions that are that are becoming possible. And so I can't go into detail now in the 40 seconds we have left, but if anyone has entrepreneurial spirit and wants to tackle this problem, please come talk to me, because I think there are big opportunities and clear directions forward.
All right, we are coming down to the wire, but maybe just last closing thoughts and where folks can find you.
What was the question?
So for me, I think the closing thoughts are, I am personally extremely excited about what we are calling the Nakamoto launch. I can't wait to make it easy to move Bitcoin from an L1 into an L2 in an easy way, fast way, and basically try and expand the Bitcoin economy. So there's a timer. Roughly in the next 6 months, we are running towards it. If you're a builder, go learn about it. Go learn about SBTC and the Nakamoto launch and how you can use it.
Yeah, I mean, Rootstock.io, you can find out everything you need to know about Rootstock. If you've worked with Ethereum before, you've worked with Solidity, you can apply all of that and build on Bitcoin with Rootstock. If you want to get up and running very quickly, Forward Protocol is a no-code platform that you can play around with. We're always trying to improve the infrastructure of Rootstock and working with the community to do that. Our focus, though, for the coming 18 months is to make it easier for developers to build and make it easier for users to use, and we're just going to keep going with that, really.
I have so many thoughts, and I don't know what the final thought is. I think because most of us here are builders, and I'll choose one final thought, is that entrepreneur builders, we are built differently, right? We can be too focused and too biased in our own bubbles. But remember, the pie, the size of the pie is not fixed, right? We need to get this exponential growth going. How do we do that? Work with each other. We are in the best sector that we can work with each other. Why? Because most of the stuff are open sourced, okay? So work with each other, find your partners, go to an ecosystem, but link with the other ecosystem. Find your friends, find your partner, find your mentor. I remember the day when FTS collapsed. I met with Munir for a coffee. You remember that day that I was crying so much? And he told me, oh, now you are an OG, right? So you remember that day? So the pie is not fixed size. It's up to us to grow the pie and work together. I'm dying to work with Idan. I love his energy. So that's my final thought. It's really nice to be here, get the energy, and work with each other.
The only way we get to live in a world that we want to live in, the only way our children get to live in a world that we would like for them to live in, is if we build that world. And building a world is a massive challenge. It is not something an individual can undertake. It has to be undertaken by communities. It has to be undertaken together. And so my final thought is this. We need to build a world on Bitcoin. We need to build it together. And we need to stay sovereign.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.